Yeah. Good morning, everyone.
Yeah. Okay. Should we kick us off, Clarence, now that we have more people?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, team, good morning. Thank you for joining us today again. Last Wednesday was a great time when we went over some of the basics of AWS, my colleague Iso and I. And today we're going to be covering another service in the AWS ecosystem is Amazon SageMaker, and we have with us Joe Wilson and John Kitaoka, and then they're going to be walking us through this service that I just mentioned, and also do a demo on that. So before I give the floor to them, do you want to say something, Clarence? Any introduction or anything that you want to say before? Or Sean? Or Maria? Is there anything you want to say before I just give the word to?
I can give an introduction. I just want to say thanks to everyone for joining this Office Hours series. I'm Sean Lovell. I work with the UN Statistics Division. And we're trying to make sure that we give the participants in the upcoming Datathon the best opportunity to succeed by showcasing the platforms that will be used and by making sure we have hands-on demonstrations of the technologies that are available. And in this series, we've benefited from AWS generously providing their time to show the various services that you can use when you're trying to architect and design your solutions and submissions to the Datathon over the 3 days you'll have. So I want to thank them for giving this talk, and I want to hand it back to them. Thank you very much.
Joe and John, the floor is yours.
For sure. So my name is John Kitaoka. I'm a solutions architect that works with Ezel, Duneski, and Joe here. I'm specializing in machine learning alongside Joe, so we're happy to guide you through some of the most interesting facets of Amazon SageMaker, as well as show you around the console and show you some really cool demos that we have planned.
Okay, thank you, John. Good morning, everyone. My name is Joe Wilson. I am a solutions architect like John, Mohammed, and Duneski. But my background is in data science, and we're primarily focusing here on machine learning, artificial intelligence here at AWS. So in this position, we got to support organizations like you and help you accomplish whatever business goals for your organization that you are seeking. And I was sharing with my colleagues when they told me about this opportunity. Interestingly, when I first graduated from grad school, I did work for UNDP. I did a 6-month internship in New York. So I just have that kind of feeling talking back with the UN family, so it's good to be here this morning. Okay, so with that being said, I will share my screen, and we're going to start out with a presentation, giving just like a high-level overview of SageMaker, Amazon SageMaker. I know that I did say presentation, but I strongly encourage all of us to make this a conversation. Please let us have a conversation this morning as opposed to a presentation. So I will share my screen now. We'll share this deck. Okay. Please let me know if you can see my slide deck.
Sure, we can see it.
Okay. Yeah, so yeah, while I'm doing a presentation, please feel free to ask questions. And let me just go through the agenda. So this is the structure of what we're going to be covering today. And we'll do some introduction. We already gone through with that. We talk about AWS AI services, take a deeper dive on Amazon SageMaker. We talk about how you can build, train, or tune models. Then we'll talk about how to deploy and prepare your models, right? So we are two here this morning. I'm going to do the presentation, and my colleague John will take over and walk you through the Sagemaker console to go through some of the labs that we have for you this morning. Any question before we can jump right into it? Okay, now let's get started. So what you are looking at on the slide deck is this is the broadest and most complete set of machine learning capabilities that AWS offers. But what we do is that we offer different builder tools so that different individuals at different levels of different skill set can come into Amazon Sagemaker console and prepare different workflow, whether for machine learning services, deep learning, and also use the different frameworks that's provided for you. So what you're seeing there at the top, at the top is our AI services. That is our artificial intelligence services, and this comes with our pre-packaged models that you can also build on. And these AI services, they are managed services. That is, AWS takes care of the underlying infrastructure of these services. Then in the middle is where Sagemaker is focused on. That is the machine learning services. And we know when it comes to the machine learning in AWS, so Sagemaker provides the platform that is intended for anyone, again, with different skill set to come and build, train, and deploy your own custom machine learning models, or you can use some of our pre-built algorithms or model that would suit your business use case. So in Sagemaker, you have, for example, Sagemaker Studio, wherein people with some level of understanding of competency in machine learning can come and build their own models. But we also have Sagemaker Canvas, wherein, for example, business analysts could use that just to run model with simple click and drag. So the point I'm trying to communicate here is that all of these models are built. All of these things can be accomplished, for example, in Sagemaker Canvas, without you having any background in machine learning. The instructions are pretty straightforward how to just click and drop in building your model. Or if you do have some experience, you can use our Sagemaker Studio, where it provides a fully Jupyter notebook, and you can build your own model, you can run, test, and deploy your own model. In upcoming slides, I will talk a little more about that. So let me just fast track things a little bit. So as I mentioned previously, Sagemaker has a lot of different features and capability in it. So some of the capabilities we're talking about can be categorized into 4 different approach. And then categorizing these 4 different approaches, you can use it to prepare your data. You can use it to build your model, train and tune your model, and also deploy and manage your model. So all of these 4 different categories of Sagemaker help you accomplish different tasks, whether it is preparing data using our Amazon Sagemaker Ground Truth to label your data for machine learning, which helps you with that undifferentiated burden of labeling data, especially when you're dealing with high volumes of data. Then there is Sagemaker Data Wrangler. This is a tool that helps you prepare your data. You can do pre-processing, you can do feature engineering of the data. And if you're someone who has an experience or worked in data science, in working with huge tons of data, you know the cost or the time associated with data preparation. Like normally we see it in data science, like 80-20, where you spend almost 80% of the time preparing your data, and then the rest of the 20% just goes into deploying, your models. So, but Sagemaker helps you and takes away that 80% of the time you work, and you just use simple click and drop for example, in Data Wrangler to do some exploratory data analysis. And the thing is, you can accomplish all of these things without writing a single line of code. So everything is just straightforward. So let's take a little more into developing on Amazon SageMaker. But before I want to jump into that for you, does anyone have a question? Okay, I'll continue.
Perhaps I could say something briefly. If you do have a question, don't hesitate to raise your hand. I know everyone's muted and cameras are off, but I believe you can raise your hand, and if we see it, we'll unmute you. Thanks.
Also, if there are questions asked in the chat, I will either respond to them, or Joe, I'll bring it to your attention that there's a question.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you, John. So now let's take some steps further into understanding the features in Amazon SageMaker, beginning with SageMaker Studio. So Studio provides a fully integrated development environment that provide a web-based interface to do your machine learning workload. And you use SageMaker Studio to prepare your data. You use it to build, train, and deploy your model into production. And you can use SageMaker Studio to connect to over 40 different AWS and other third-party data sources to input your data, perform data quality and feature engineering using some of our 300 plus build transformations. Then stay on SageMaker Studio. You can access a fully managed Jupyter notebooks in SageMaker Studio, and it comes with a pre-configured deep learning environment, for example, TensorFlow and PyTorch, which helps you to quickly start building your model. Then one of the unique features is that you can co-edit the same notebook file. You can run a notebook code simultaneously, and you can also review the results together to streamline the collaboration. So normally in a traditional machine learning building environment, you normally will find data scientists or data analysts working in a siloed environment using different frameworks, different devices, right? But SageMaker does provide an opportunity where everyone can collaborate, and build a simple model, deploy it, and even monitor the cost and usage of everything in the SageMaker Studio environment. And one thing I want to point out, our SageMaker Studio, it also runs on our EC2 instances, and EC2 is, in a nutshell, is just the virtual servers that we have here. So you're just focusing on building your model, run your machine learning model, deploying it, monitoring it, but the underlying infrastructure of everything that is happening, for example, the compute environment, AWS takes care of that, and there are different compute instances that you can also go for if you intend minimizing cost, and I will talk about that shortly. Any question in the chat? Any comments? And also, I'd like to hear some sort of participation in terms of if what I'm saying resonates with some of the things you've been thinking about, right? Some of the projects you're thinking about, how you want to go about and develop it. I would encourage you to share your experience, along this, so that we can make this more of a conversation and explore other opportunities that we can generate from here. Now, let's talk about the training on Amazon SageMaker. So I know I've mentioned it initially from the onset, but just to reinforce it, SageMaker provides thousands of built-in training algorithms and hundreds of pre-trained models. So if you're using some of our pre-trained models or the algorithm, and if it doesn't meet your need, well, you can also bring your own solution, right? You can bring a custom model to SageMaker. And if you need to run your custom packages or use any code which isn't part of our supported framework, and you can then you can build your own custom Docker image. And if you're familiar with Docker, you know, it's a continuous services, and that's what hosts our images in SageMaker if you want to build that. And all you need to do is just install the Docker, which also comes with pre-packaged. It's just like a pre-packaged software, just to make things simpler.
So Joe, I see a question in the chat. Joel is asking, I would like to know how connections to the instances are made. So that can be referring to like SageMaker Notebook instances or SageMaker Studio instances via a domain. Could you shine some more light on that?
Connection to the instances.
Yes. Joel, just to specify your question a little bit more, are you talking about connecting to specific like studio domains? Because to get started with Studio, your administrator has to configure a domain, and that is basically spinning up a collaborative IDE for your team. Oh, perfect. Okay, so he's referring to Studio. I guess I can just answer this. Yeah, so your administrator has to spin up a domain, and then if you get added as a user, you can connect to that domain and collaborate with the rest of the users in a simple IDE that most resembles like Jupyter Lab.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, John. And yeah, that's how you can connect to your domain. You just get that permission from the administrator. But if you're running about the instances, these instances, once you spin up a Jupyter notebook, for example, SageMaker Jupyter notebook, it is run on an instance at the back end. And you can also have the opportunity to switch between the different instances based on your machine learning workload, right? But automatically you just connect it to it once you enter the SageMaker Studio. Then training with your own XGBoost script. So some of us might be familiar with XGBoost algorithm, one of those that can be used for example, classification or regression, and it's one of those best performing algorithms out there. So it is embedded in SageMaker Studio, where you can train your own, you can bring your own and train it. And yeah, and you can use it as a framework to also run the training scripts in your local environment. So what you're seeing on the screen is just some of what you would do to import that into your notebook environment. Yeah, I don't have to go through this code. And then also SageMaker gives you the opportunity to train with your own deep learning model. So you want to run the deep learning work. We have framework there that you can use, PyTorch, Spark ML, X-Ray, TensorFlow, MXNet, just different frameworks that SageMaker has for you to deep learning model. Then there is a Docker file. I know I mentioned Docker initially, but Amazon SageMaker makes extensive use of Docker containers for you to build and do your runtime tasks. And SageMaker provides this pre-built Docker image for its building algorithms. And these algorithms are those that can support deep learning frameworks for training and running inference. So if that is a concern for you, well, SageMaker just have this available that you can use Docker to build and do your runtime tasks. And there are pre-built Docker images. I don't know if anyone is contemplating on performing some deep learning work for the hackathon. Maybe someone can just say it, or maybe not. I'm not sure What's the requirements around that? So all of these is as you are building your model, as you are training, as you are running inference or deploying your model, you have the opportunity to track every step along the way. So what you are looking at is just how to track these, to track and collect your model artifacts, everything you're training, even if you have a different version of your model. So what you're looking at on the right is log events from CloudWatch. So you use that to monitor everything regarding your building, training, your models. So you don't have to worry about, oh, how do I made changes sometimes I go to the model. How do I go back and kind of track that? And this also helps with auditing as well, right? Just to help you prepare your Sagemaker, your model you build in Sagemaker. So Sagemaker automatically creates all of the tracking entities that is associated with the experiments you are running, whether it's a Sagemaker jobs, processing, a training jobs, and if it is a batch transform jobs, all of these things can be automatically tracked, and you have the opportunity to get to your model artifacts if you need them, maybe for auditing purposes. So you can reduce the training cost. Sagemaker makes it easy to train your machine learning models. You can use or manage Amazon EC2 Spot instances. So just a little bit on Spot instances. If you are running a job and that is, let me put it this way, if it is not like a mission critical sort of workload, or it is a workload that is open to interruption, right? That makes sense if you use Spot instances. And it also works well with you if you training a model in Sagemaker, right? Because you're not deploying it, you're just training that model, so you can, at least you can have some interruption. But the good thing is that if you're using a Spot instance, which is a managed EC2 instance, a Spot training can optimize the cost of training your models up to 90%. It can lower the cost if you, as compared to running on-demand instances. So to further clarify on this, if you training your model and you go for our traditional EC2 on-demand instances, and the cost, comparatively, the cost will be higher if you compare that with a Sagemaker, with a Spot instance, right? If you use a Spot instance for your training job, that will give you like 90% reduction in terms of cost. And Sagemakers will manage all of the interruptions on your behalf. So while it's true we are building, Sagemaker helps you for your machine learning workflow and deep learning tasks, but it's not just a platform to go and build or a tool to go and build. It is also cost optimal because we try to encourage our customers as they use our services to be cost optimal as well, and even make progress in what they're trying to do. Any question? So these are just the different open source model that can be deployed on Amazon Sagemaker, whether it's for deep learning, what is just different frameworks that you can deploy on Sagemaker. And all of these are open source. You got, for example, Docker that I spoke about. If you're running stuff or Databricks, of course, we have Arrow. If you're working in Arrow as well, you can also run your Arrow notebook in Sagemaker Studio. So there's a framework for Python, and there's also the framework for Arrow. For those of you that work in Arrow language, right, you can also do that in Sagemaker Studio. Now, one of the cool things about Sagemaker is enabling auto-scaling. So auto-scaling is one of these features that can dynamically adjust the number of instances you provision for a model. And this adjustment can happen based on changes in your workload. So what I mean is when your workload increases, auto scaling can bring more instances online. And if your workload decreases, right, then of course it will scale. It will scale in by reducing the number of instances that should be available. And all of these help you to be efficient, to be highly available, and also cost optimal. Then, of course, you can bring your own pre-trained models and scripts on Sagemaker to host it. And for example, what you see, yeah, if you got a TensorFlow, if you got a model built on TensorFlow, so you can just input that into your Sagemaker environment, right? And just do your work. Again, this is just reinstating what you can do with deploying your model using Docker in Sagemaker. Then I'll talk a little more about some features that are in Sagemaker Studio. Any questions so far? Yeah. So just to go over a few more features that are available in Sagemaker. One is autopilot. So Amazon Sagemaker autopilot makes machine learning easier and faster. You can build your classification and regression models without deep machine learning understanding. So all you need to do is just provide your data sets in the tabular form and select from the target column, and autopilot will just give you a model that can autopilot will explore your data set and also select a model that works best for your data set based on your target you're trying to predict. So this is just one of those simple things. You don't need any machine learning experience to do that. All you need to do is understand your data, understand what you're trying to predict, and provide your data in the tabular form. Autopilot will do a lot of the underground work, background work for you.
Just want to point out we have a question, if you'd like to take it, from Usaman Sidhu.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, so you mentioned that the data can be in tabular format. What about image, 2D vectors, and so on? I mean, can I have image as input for the learning or image as output?
So you mentioned you talking about using an autopilot if the data is in tabular form, but you have or if you have like an image data and you want to run.
Suppose that my input is 2D vectors, and I would like the output to be a 2D vector too. Does it work or it doesn't work?
I don't know, John. Have you experienced that?
So are we just talking about autopilot?
Yeah, just
no,
autopilot.
Any of the machine learning algorithm. Is there a machine learning algorithm which will take maps and spit out maps?
Yeah, I don't know that autopilot is able to do that. However, you can easily bring your own model into Sagemaker. So one of the things that I've seen is customers are able to bring in like multi-dimensional data, such as like this 2D vector you have, and specify inference scripts on the hosting services that we do offer. You can bring your own custom inference script and configure that to take in a 2D vector and output a 2D vector. Is that the answer you were looking for?
I'm not sure what an inference script is. Does it convert it into a 1D vector or?
It can if you configure it to do so. An inference script is just to provide the machine learning model with taking in input, running it through the model, and configuring the output.
Okay, thank you.
So in essence, what John is saying is that you can bring your own script, right, and just run it in SageMaker to give you the output that you were looking for. So there are a lot of things that you can do in SageMaker. You can customize some of the models here. You can customize it to suit your outcome, right? Or if, for example, some of the pre-built algorithms or model that we have, it doesn't give you the output you were looking for, then you have the opportunity to kind of build on top of that to design it in a way that gives you the output that you were seeking to get. So there are a lot of flexibilities in here that you can do. And the goal here is to use this tool to enable you accomplish, what you are looking to do. Then another features is SageMaker Experiment. So Amazon SageMaker Experiment lets you to launch, track, compare, and evaluate thousands of your model training experiments and the different model versions so that you can identify the best performing models. So it can manage all the experiments performed by your developer, all your machine learning artifacts, including the data set, the algorithms, the parameters, the metrics. They can be automatically tracked and recorded. So that helps to give you the ability to organize, track, and just compare your different experiments and choose the most optimal model for your use case. And this is what it looked like in the console. As you can see, the graph here that indicates the performance of the different models or training jobs. Then you can just look at these and look at their performance and say, well, I want to go with this trial. I want to go with this based on the trial and how it performed, at a certain point in time. And it also gives you this opportunity to visualize the output. This is what the graph is showing. So it just helps you make the decision regarding the most optimal model. And this can help you track thousands of training experiments and also gives you an insight in understanding the accuracy of your model. So, was that a question? I heard something in the background. If not, okay, we'll move forward. Then there is SageMaker Debugger. So if you're training a machine model with Amazon SageMaker Debugger, it just make it easier for you to automatically detect several classes of errors and also allows some interactive analysis of your training metrics. SageMaker Debugger was that okay? SageMaker Debugger provides full visibility into the training process by automating the process of capturing analysis of the data from different training runs. So you have the opportunity or the ability to inspect and analyze and debug the data. And also you can have a visual indicator about anomalies in the training process in your Amazon SageMaker Studio. And one of the good things is that it can detect an anomaly and it will alert the developer if there is errors occurring. Are there any other questions?
Sorry, Joe. So I was just checking the Q&A. Usman asked a question. I'm not sure if we answered that already, but what kinds of input and output data can be used? I'm guessing that refers to SageMaker Autopilot.
I think so. Okay, is the person able to come on and explain a little bit about the question they were asking?
And if
One
not,
sec, let me unmute him. I can unmute him. Sorry.
no worries.
apologies.
We also can take in Q&A session either in the middle of the presentation or after the presentation or after the demos. So
Sure,
anytime.
absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, I already asked the question. It was about whether it can be 1D, 2D, or scalars as input or output for any ML algorithm. And you answered it actually.
Okay, thank you. Sagemaker Model Monitor is another feature. So it helps monitor your models in production and can detect errors. So, which of course will help you take any actions right away. Model Monitor eliminates the need to build extra tool to monitor your model in production, right? And also, when do you need to take corrective actions if there is some errors being detected in your model? But the thing is, everything is happening in your one environment. You don't have to work in silo tools to have this level of insights, visibility of your model. You know, what you're receiving alert, where you're receiving information that, hey, there is some anomaly in the model, you know, or there's some model drift. For example, if there's a model drift, right? All of these things can just happen in an environment, and you don't have to just be working in siloed spaces to build, train, deploy, and monitor your model. So that's one of the good values that Sagemaker provides. So additionally, our Sagemaker Model Monitor can analyze the data that is collected and on a built-in rules, or even you as a customer can provide your own rules at a regular frequency if you need to determine if there are any violations of your rule. And everyone can have their own different rules, right, to suit the business use case that you are solving. So, for example, you want to configure a rule to detect outliers in your data. You can configure that, and Sagemaker Model Monitor can be used to detect an outlier in your data when based on that rule. So this is how it what it looks like. So with Sagemaker Model Monitor, so what you see in this example is just a chart with importing model features. And you can use that model features that it provides some summary statistics, and it just gives you an insight how you monitor your model over time and compare the feature used in the training, right? So this is how you will see, this is how the Sagemaker Model Monitor will look like. And you will use this chart to kind of monitor some of the features used at a certain point in time. Let's see, will you do the analysis here? So as you can see, there's this gold line represent the current, and you have the baseline, which is the blue line that represents the baseline. So this is what your baseline is your model against as it is into production in actions. So if you look on the left, what is here is like a 1 week monitoring here. And on this Friday, it's just the statistics to give you the sum of everything. See that 1 p.m., 3 p.m., 7 p.m., 9 p.m., you know, at setting different date and different times interval, you're monitoring the performance of the model. So I'd like to pause it and take any additional questions. If not, while we're doing that, then we can just transition over to my colleague John, who will just do a quick walkthrough of SageMaker the environment and do a short lab. So let me start sharing while John is getting prepared.
For sure. And please feel free to unmute if you're able to, or ping some of the leadership to get you unmuted, or feel free to ask questions in the chat or the Q&A section as well. We'll be monitoring that. But we'll take the next couple minutes to just field any questions you guys might have. Is there any interesting use cases you'd like to share with us?
And don't hesitate to raise your hand if you need to be unmuted. I'm happy to do that.
Oh, I see there are a lot of comments in this chat. Huh.
Right. Yeah, if we don't have any questions at the moment, let's hop right into the SageMaker console. So Nur, yes, you will have to provide your credit card information for free for the free tier usage. However, I'm guessing that the UN provides accounts for you to use. Please coordinate with them regarding pricing. We can send the pricing information afterwards as well.
So maybe just to clarify on that point, we will, Duneski, if you want to jump in, but we'll have for the Datathon AWS workshop accounts, which will be valid for 3 days. Is that correct, Duneski?
That is correct. So the UN team will be provided with an account that's going to last for 72 hours. So you don't have to worry about any charges. It's going to be free, totally free for you guys. I don't know if the person, I think it's Noor, was asking about a personal account. If you create a personal account, yeah, you will need a credit card, but there's a free tier. We posted it in the chat. As long as you stay in the free tier, you will not incur any charges. So you can still use a personal account, but for the Datathon, you don't have to worry. We're going to be providing the accounts for you for free.
Yes.
And just one thing on that, I mean, just to make it clear, I don't think we'll be able to provide advanced access to the UN accounts before the Datathon actually starts. So I believe there'll be almost like a start moment where we'll open up access and then people will be able to log in. But before that, if you want to, you'll have to either use a like a self-paying account or some other option.
Yes, exactly. With the Workshop Studio accounts, which provide you with AWS access, you'll be able to really play around and see what you like and what you don't like in Amazon SageMaker. I'm going to be guiding you guys through a few pretty interesting facets of the SageMaker service, including some like pre-made demos that you most definitely can try out on your own time. Especially with the Workshop Studio accounts. I think those are the best utilization of your time. Duneski, when does the Datathon start?
November 3rd.
Nice. Okay. Well, you guys will have to unfortunately wait until that time, but hopefully I can get you guys excited about working in SageMaker. Let me share my screen and I can walk you guys through the demos.
Yeah, they can still use a personal account, like I said before, but you need to be careful and read the free tier details carefully, so you don't incur any charges and you can stay within that free tier. You will be fine.
Exactly. So can everyone see my screen?
Yeah, it looks good.
Amazing. Okay, so not sure how comfortable everyone is with the AWS console, but this is just the main view. Please don't take note of the cost and usage on this current account. We're doing some pretty intensive testing with some of the new services we have in preview, so disregard that. it's not what you'll see likely. So Mayusuf asked a question, when will you provide us with personal accounts? For the workshop studio at the Datathon event, that'll be in November. Yes, okay. All right, so this is the main console view. You can see all the relevant services that you've used. I've highlighted a few key services that I typically go back to when I'm building in AWS, but it gives you a lot of cool information, such as quick start solutions. So launching a VM, starting a development project with our code star service, just relevant things to do for popular use cases in AWS. It also gives you a few key information points for like your security posture, your applications currently running, trusted advisor for adhering to best practice recommendations as highlighted by our well-architected framework, and some recent AWS blog posts. I was able to get the opportunity to publish a blog post last week. I can send that in a follow-up email, but I'm not sure if that use case is entirely relevant to this discussion. Yeah, so we can dive into Sagemaker. You can either get to it through the search bar right here, or you can highlight it, access it right here. I typically use this most often, so it's in my recently visited. And is this, I can zoom in a little bit so it's more clear to see, but how you get started with Amazon Sagemaker most often is people use Studio as the development environment. That provides you with most, if not all, of the Sagemaker functionality within a single like Jupyter Lab like interface. For administrators, all you need to do is launch a domain, which is going to be just the broad application that your users connect to. And within that domain, you can access Studio. What's really cool about this is the domain allows you to launch applications like Studio, or even Canvas, or if you're comfortable with RStudio, which is the R equivalent of Studio. Canvas, Joe, I'm not sure if you covered that in depth, but that's our low code, no code service for machine learning. So all you need to do is bring in your data, highlight the target variable, and the Canvas service will do the model selection and tuning and deployment of that. So we can dive into Studio. And for the question posed earlier, how do you connect to the instances? That's exactly how you connect. You go through the console and then you open Studio if you have a user profile already allocated. You can also use Sagemaker just in the SDK. So there's the Python SDK, Bodo 3. You can use that to coordinate Sagemaker services as well as all of AWS services. And there's also a specific Sagemaker SDK, which is purpose-built for Sagemaker services. So you're able to quickly build, train, tune, deploy using just a few lines of code. So this is what you're going to see when you first log into Studio. I'm going to zoom in a little bit because I think this is a little bit hard to see. But it's a pretty visual interface. There's a lot of quick start guides to get started with this. All you need to do is just specify what you want to be done, what you want to do, and it'll open a notebook. I can open a quick notebook for you. Just with the quick start guide. You can choose your own image and you can customize your kernel, and you can actually launch it just with a couple clicks. So I am using the Data Science 3.0 package, which comes pre-installed with stuff like NumPy, Pandas, and the relevant machine learning libraries. I believe it comes with versions of TensorFlow and PyTorch, but to get the most updated versions, you can just scroll down, select the version you want, as well as the version of Python you want, and get started. So I'm just going to stick with the Data Science 3.0 with the Python 3 kernel, and you can also choose a instance type in which the notebook will run on. Obviously, the higher tier instances will make the notebook run a lot faster, but if all you're doing is building and deploying a model, you typically just need to stick to the T3 medium, if not smaller. You just need the base compute to actually deploy the model. And if you're deploying the model into a Sagemaker endpoint, you can just run predictions on that model just from the notebook. So it provides CPU instances or GPU instances, such as this G4DN X large for a fast launch. For all others, it'll take a little bit longer. You can also specify a startup script. You can bring in your own. I don't think there's any in this account currently. But I'm just spinning up a quick notebook. Not sure how long this is going to take, but I have a couple pre-made. Great. So as soon as I said that, the notebook has spun up, and alongside that, the compute has been provisioned for this notebook too. So as you can see, you're able to interact with this much like a Jupyter notebook or even a Jupyter Lab interface. So with this, you can just install your relevant packages and then get to work. What's really cool about this is that if you have multiple users under a single domain, they'll all be able to collaborate on this. So you can not only see what your coworkers are working on, you can actually collaborate with them to make sure that you're optimizing your AWS usage optimally. There's also a lot of features in the left-hand side of the screen. So as you can see here, you can just go back to home. You can utilize a lot of the Sagemaker services just within the Sagemaker Studio IDE. So that's that data wrangler to just prepare your data, feature store to collaborate on processed features. So if you have, say, that multidimensional vector turn to one-dimensional vector, you can share that feature with others, saving that extra processing time for multiple users to do that. You can also launch a cluster as well for intensive work across different organizations and groups. You have AutoML and experiments to track, to deploy low-code machine learning models, as well as experiments to manage those experiments you try. So different model configurations, you can easily trace back what the model is doing and how you're able to improvise and adapt to that. You can also run notebook jobs, so executing all cells in a notebook to do batch processing or even inference, and configure pipelines to automatically execute a workflow. What's really interesting is you can share models and manage your deployments at scale. And what I really like about getting started with Studio is Sagemaker Jumpstart, which is a whole repository of pre-built models, notebooks, and solutions for pretty much any use case. And this can use a lot of different pre-made models. So TensorFlow has its model zoo, PyTorch has its equivalent, I'm not sure of the name on the top of my head, as well as like the different open source language models and even proprietary language models you can deploy on an instance and run some predictions or generate some output in that way. So we can dive into Jumpstart. There's some really cool demos in here. Notably, we've gone all in on generative AI. So the first thing you're going to see is how you can quickly get started with deploying a large language model. If that is of any interest to you, please let me know in the comments and I can touch on that later. But for now, I'm going to focus on some more traditional machine learning use cases. So it does come with some pre-made solutions. So these are end-to-end machine learning solutions that you can just deploy in one click. For time series, I know that was a question brought up a little bit earlier. We can dive into this and you can see that it comes with a briefing on what this does, this estimated cost, the architecture, and some of the use case examples. And I'd highly encourage you to dive into the different pre-made solutions within Jumpstart. There's a lot of different facets and use cases, but we can launch the solution. So I'm assuming during the Datathon, if you are using Studio, there will be a very generous walkthrough on accessing Studio. The Studio domain will be configured for you. So all you need to do is pretty much just go to the console, select Studio, and just open the Studio Lab. So this might take a while to deploy this end-to-end solution. So we can just look into what's being generated. This is deploying a specific endpoint for a pre-made model that deals with time series data. So it's deploying two different endpoints, as well as it has already created those models to go on those endpoints. And it's going to also launch a notebook to help us interact with those endpoints that we've created. I'm going to see if we can actually look at the notebook before we can look at the finished product. I'm not seeing that option here, but that is not, I guess, standard across all SageMaker Jumpstart notebooks. This gives you a brief introduction on what LSTNet and Profit do. So some of the other cool solutions within SageMaker Jumpstart are, I actually may ask, please type in the chat if you have like specific domains that you're interested in, such as computer vision or natural language processing or time series, anything else that I could cover first.
Perhaps I could make a suggestion. If you have anything relating to, well, like I said, just computer vision, but also in the hackathon, we would be curious about remote sensing data, anything Earth observation. This is an area of interest in the UN in general. So, I mean, if you have demos relating to that, that would be interesting as well.
Amazing. Yes. And the computer vision I see in the chat. I probably should have seen this coming with the question on the 2D vector data. But it has a pre-made solution that uses Amazon Rekognition, which is our managed computer vision service. However, you can also use some of the TensorFlow model libraries, such as like AlexNet. You can just deploy that. This is an image classification pre-made notebook, so we can actually look at the notebook and see how that works. I'm not going to specify kernel. I'm not going to run any of these cells, but pretty much all it does is it uses the SageMaker SDK to choose a model and deploy a model and run inference on that model. So we can see this is the base model that we're using off of it's the model ID from the TensorFlow model zoo. And this doesn't have to be image classification too. It can be object detection, or even if you have video, you can import. I'm not sure of any video tracking pre-made models off the top of my head, but we do have a deep integration with Hugging Face. So if you do find a model off of Hugging Face, you're able to easily import that. But in just a few lines of code, you're able to not only get the model ID, you can deploy the image, you can deploy the model, and you can run inference on this as a predictor object. And a lot of these pre-made models, they come with already defined inference scripts, as I was talking about earlier. This just defines how to configure the input to give to this pre-made model. If you bring your own custom model, you'll probably have to define your own inference script. This is just to run inference on the model and return in the way that you want it to return. Sagemaker also comes with a variety of sample data as well. So this is all found in the Jumpstart cache. I'm not sure if you can directly access it via S3. However, there are a ton of different notebooks and solutions that you can explore the different data sets that we have to offer. And just in this few cells of code, you're able to run a prediction on this pre-made model, or if you want to fine-tune it on your own data, what you can do is you can run a training job. So I'm taking some flower image data. I'm specifying the output location for the model artifacts. And I am specifying the tuning. Or actually, all you specify or can specify in this case is the epochs, or the number of iterations. All of this can be the default parameters. We're just specifying the hyperparameters that we want. You can also specify ranges if you want to launch a tuning job as well. So for this, we want to modify the learning rate to be optimal. So that's going to try out the different values in a continuous range on a logarithmic scale between 0.0001 and 0.1. So it's going to look at those values and pick out the best ones. And yeah, all you need to do is just execute these lines of code. And if you want to use your own data, you can specify that as well.
John, there's a question in the chat for John.
Yeah, I can read it just in case this is something that you're prepared to answer. If not, it was something that came up when I was researching this. But apparently there's Sagemaker has these geospatial capabilities that were recently introduced, and I'd just be curious. I mean, obviously it's in the U.S. West 2 region because that's where all the geospatial data is. But if that's something you happen to know anything about, that'd be interesting. But it does seem like there's a specific Sagemaker Studio Notebook instance that uses a particular image that has, I'm guessing, all the geospatial libraries preloaded, and could help with some of the geospatial tasks that might be relevant.
Yeah, so let me try and look around for that for you. I haven't had too many questions recently about the geospatial capabilities, but we do have a lot of functionality for that. Let's see, Joe, if you could look around for those while I continue with this, that would be amazing.
Yes, we do have that capabilities in Sagemaker. Let me just post the documentation on that. I don't know if this is what you came across. Oh, sorry, that was for something else. Let me see. Oh, did I copy the wrong thing? Yeah, okay. Yes, so is it not posted? Yeah, okay, so I just posted a link on geospatial ML with Amazon Sagemaker. That capability is available wherein you use to build, train, and deploy machine model faster using geospatial data. Was that a question?
Yeah, this is great. I mean, I see they have the example notebooks, they have developer guides, so this should be enough to get people unblocked. I think we don't have to obviously go through the details, but just for those of you who are participating, these are some resources that might be invaluable if you want to make a note of them and dive deeper. At the very least, reading about this approach so that during the Datathon you have an idea about how you can jump into a particular solution.
Yes. So regarding the edge compute slash, what was the use case? Remote sensing data. Is that towards like anomaly detection? No, sorry.
Is that for me, or is it?
It's for the rest of the UN team. If you're able to answer that, that's perfect.
I can give it. Yeah. So we've done in the UN. We have a lot of interest in things like crop estimation, understanding climate change phenomena broadly defined. And also we do have a particular use case in our division where we've been doing a lot of ship monitoring. So using AIS data, and so there may be some scenarios where there are aggregated. We have certain data they may be trying to pull into their AWS environment that would have some geospatial nature that would be relating to ship movements. So that's another thing that they could consider. But yeah, the UN in general has an interest in sustainable development. So things, the urbanization, land usage, and that sort of thing. But that's outside of my area of expertise. But I'm aware of that's the extent, I think, of that.
All right. Yeah. So with that, thank you for that information. This notebook that I popped up, I don't think this is quite the use case for normal like real-time edge data from like remote sensing, maybe not including geospatial. You can use the built-in random cut forest algorithm that Amazon loves, as well as XGBoost to do anomaly detection. And you can set up that whole pipeline to notify you in real time, or you can just batch transform. So we can look at these resources that Ezel sent in the chat, and I'm able to, if you guys are comfortable with looking at code, I definitely am, but please let me know. This is boring. But this is
go for it. This is a Datathon, so yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Why not? Why not, right? So this is another one of those pre-made notebooks. This is available through GitHub, so you're able to download this notebook, and launch it to Sagemaker, and open it in Studio. Joel, I am not quite sure if you'll be having access to GPUs. However, we can check out the Workshop Studio account limits afterwards. I know for a fact that some GPUs are available, just not like the higher tier, like 8-core A100 NVIDIA GPUs. Unfortunately, that's just because of resource conservation on free accounts. I shouldn't say free, provisions accounts. But this is one of those pre-made notebooks for geospatial solutions. Comes with 3 parts to this. So this is kind of covering not just playing around with the geospatial capabilities, but also deploying and monitoring. So what we can do with this is you can use a special client, the Sagemaker geospatial client from the Boto 3 library, to get access and play around with this geospatial data. Of course, you'd have to add in like the coordinates that you want to focus on, as well as like the geometry of the location. So, Dickie, just to answer your question, we will provide you with a Workshop Studio account. That's a provisioned AWS account for you to use for 3 days, starting from the start of the Datathon. It's not advised to use your own personal AWS account just because AWS is billed based on usage. And even though you may fall under the free tier, there is a chance that some of the stuff may not be entirely free. We can send along the free tier materials so you can get a good understanding of what you can and can't do under the free tier and the limitations on that. So Sagemaker does also provide a built-in model for segmentation, specifically like cloud cover and I think forest cover as well. They all work very well. I'm currently working on a geospatial project for cloud cover, and it's pretty effective at that. So we can send along some of these resources, but everything pretty much follows a Jupyter Notebook format. You can definitely make your own script once you've finalized everything and deploy it onto an endpoint. But if you want to take a closer look with this, just click on the link that Ezel sent in the chat a little bit earlier. We can dive back into Sagemaker Studio, or we can dive around into the different options. So every time you deploy a model and host it on Sagemaker, it's going to save that model artifact either in an S3 bucket of your choosing or the Sagemaker S3 bucket. It's just going to populate here. So you're able to, if you have a model that you've liked before and you want to deploy it again, you can just quickly create an endpoint configuration or just create an endpoint from that. You can also specify if you're launching this to production, you can set up a shadow variant. So that's if you want to test out an additional configuration, or if you want to split traffic and do A/B testing, you can set up production variants as well. One other cool thing as well is our service ground truth. So that's a way for you to quickly label data. So you can collect data to fine tune your models even further. I also like using notebook instances. It's kind of a preference. I grew up, or I learned Python through just like deploying a local Jupyter notebook. So this is definitely the most familiar interface to me. This deploys a specific compute instance to your notebook, as opposed to Studio, where you can just quickly launch a compute instance and it'll spin down when you leave. So, Usman, do you have a question?
Are there any other question? Anything else that we probably need to talk about? Maybe something new came up during the presentation or even during the lab? We're here to answer your questions.
Sean, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you clarify what you mean by endpoint and production? And once the model is developed, how will other people interact with him, the general public?
The general public? Perfect. So if you train or use a pre-made model, or if you just launch a pre-made model on a SageMaker endpoint, it automatically gets saved in here. So with that, you can create an endpoint configuration, and that you can specify variants. Shadow variants are not interactable by like the public or whatever you specify. But if you launch a model onto a SageMaker endpoint, you can specify these security rules. So if you only restrict it to a certain IP, you can definitely do that and make it not available to the public. You can turn this into a internal only and restrict access based off of users. The SageMaker SDK provides a really convenient way to interact with those endpoints as well through the predictor objects. So the difference between a notebook instance and SageMaker Studio is kind of like a all-encompassing IDE. So with the notebooks on SageMaker Studio, all you need to do is specify the kernel and the instance it runs on, and that'll launch a notebook with that specific instance. When you leave SageMaker Studio, the instance is going to spin down automatically. And with the notebook, you have to stop it and delete it to stop incurring charges. One of the other cool things that you can do is, I briefly touched on this a little bit before, but you can pretty easily launch any Hugging Face model just with the SageMaker SDK. It provides support for Hugging Face models. Specifically, I just read up a couple weeks ago on this new foundation model that is for geospatial data released by IBM and NASA. I think it's called the Prithee 100 model. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that, but it's a really cool use case. You can fine tune it easily, specifically for geospatial purposes. With that, you can deploy a local endpoint and you can interact with it with the terminal or execute any terminal commands you have, launch any notebook jobs, or even make a Python file to interact with as well. And this can integrate a lot with GitHub as well as like a file system. This is the local file system that comes with it. I've already downloaded a few artifacts on here. But you can monitor how many instances you currently have running and shut them down. So I have launched a G4DN X large. So that's one of those GPU instances. I currently have that running, but I can shut down that, as well as the applications that are currently running. These are the kernels that are currently running. When I deleted an instance or I stopped an instance, I also may stop a running application that is running on top of that instance. It also breaks it down into kernel sessions as well. So you can initialize this with a Git repository. And you can also get an in-depth view of maybe one of the notebooks you're looking at. As well as either make your own extensions or search the community extensions. And this is very similar to how Visual Studio works as well. If you don't want to use Studio, however, there's a lot of support in the console. So with that, you can launch your training jobs just with point and click. You can find your algorithm, you can train on top of that, and then you can view your model when it's deposited here. Yeah, you can also access some foundation models through Jumpstart just in the console. So this is all populated by the huge rise in generative AI models in the last year. So we're going to have to sift through that a little bit. But yeah, you can view the different language models that Amazon loves, as well as computer vision. So these just take the pre-made models from MXNet, TensorFlow, and PyTorch. And you can also tweak and tune that depending on the specific model zoo model. And you can see here for image classification, the number of models in the model zoo is 60. So you can figure out what works best for you and iterate on top of that. So in addition to like computer vision models and foundation models, which foundation models may be too expensive for the use case, you can also just boil it down to a natural language processing job. So text summarization with Distillabart, or just deploying a simple BERT model to do some classification or question answering, you're able to do that. And that's also done through the partnership with Hugging Face. So we can look at the text generation. Let's see. So these are all the models that are available. These typically use large language models for text generation, but for sentence classification with BERT, we're able to deploy a more lighter version. So the models that are available are the BERT, cased, uncased, and you can select the number of parameters that fit the use case. One of the distinctions with this is that usually the higher parameter models, such as like the large language models, have better reasoning capabilities at the cost of resource intensivity. So is there any other questions? I know we're getting close on time here, but is there any questions that Joe and I could quickly cover?
I just wanted to propose that perhaps some of the resources that we've made available could be put in the documentation that we're putting together. Perhaps if anything you send via email, we can make sure that these resources are available. In the future, we'll have a documentation resource where users in the week prior to the Datathon will be able to review and assess a range of material relating to AWS in particular, and as well as the other platforms. So if there's anything that we'd like to share, then you can send those to me and Clarence, and we can make sure those are added to the thing. So yeah. Thanks.
Perfect. Well, appreciate your engagement. Really love stepping in here, and I'm sure Joe has some words as well. But thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Yeah, it was great interacting with you all. If there's any other question that comes up that you want us to answer, please feel free. You can send us an email. Our colleagues, Ezo and Doneski, can channel it to us, and we'll be glad to answer.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much, Joe and John. Thank you. Appreciate that. So today we're going to be sending a follow-up email later, and that's going to contain.
Quick question, Doneski. Someone is asking if you want to upload your own data for you. Are you asking about the hackathon? If we just come off them, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, most likely he's asking about the Datathon. Yes. So so you folks are allowed to use any type of data as long as it is not confidential. There are open registries where you can get the data from, and we're going to be providing also the link to the open registry on AWS, which has a number of data sets are publicly accessible. So we're going to be talking about that. We talked about that last week. And
sorry,
go ahead.
John, can we just show how they can access the data on open registry? You remember we just showed how to go straight to S3 bucket. Do you have that available, Henry?
Yeah.
Yeah, let me pull it up. I know
so
we're
already at time, but if you guys can spare a few minutes, we can go over how to bring the data from the open registry into Sagemaker.
It's just less than 2 minutes.
Yeah. So what you can do with this is, I think we were exploring the COVID data sets.
Yeah.
Let's just go to the COVID-19 data sets.
Hit on it. Okay.
Data. Okay. What you can do with this is in the Datathon, you'll get the chance to try this out by yourself, but all of this data in Open Data Registry is hosted on S3 buckets. You can see the S3 bucket region here. So all this COVID-19 harmonized data is hosted in that specific region. You can pull it into your own AWS account through the CLA. And usually you would do this either like, as I was saying, in the Studio terminal. You can launch a terminal resource. You can also browse the bucket as well. So I'm going to open that a new tab and touch on that a little bit later. But you can pretty much just use the AWS CP CLI command to copy the data into your own S3 bucket. Out of the interest of time, I'm not going to do that for you right now because it is a pretty massive data set. But we will be able to provide some additional help come the time of the Datathon.
Could you explore the bucket?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Yeah.
So it's partitioned into a couple different categories. So we can look at the US daily COVID-19 tracking. So we can see that in an S3 bucket or just as a raw CSV file. All this is also hosted in GitHub as well. So if you feel the need to, you can just download this 400 rows of CSV data. Or, yeah, there's a problem with my Workshop Studio account. Let's see. You need to sign into your AWS account to access this, but you can just simply browse the bucket and not have a problem with it. Out of the interest in time, I'm not going to sign in. I forgot my password. However, what you can do is just look at this GitHub repo with all this data. And Kobshai, I don't know that off the top of my head. However, you'll probably have to check with the Datathon administrators.
I don't believe we have a limit on the data that you can use. Like the way we're funneling these things is in all these data sets will have to go into it'll have to be consistent with the theme of the Datathon, which will be released, I believe, in the week prior. But it's really going to be about what data sets make the most sense in the context of the challenge that will be given to the participants. Yeah, so you're free to use, in general, I believe, any data set, but obviously with certain logical choices given the theme of the Datathon, which hasn't been revealed yet. So when that's out, it'll make more sense, and you're free to be creative within those within that final purpose, if you will.
Yeah, and also for the Datathon, there are going to be certain regions where the account's going to be deployed, and you have to make sure that the region where the data is the region where you are in your account. Otherwise, you would get an access denied error message.
So if you are also running into those cross-region problems, another thing you could do is just go to that Git repo link that you'll see in the Open Data Registry. And then with that Studio integration with Git, all you need to do is just do a Git clone of this specific GitHub repository.
I don't know if you see my screen, but I want to show quickly. You can also just explore the data. Once you're in an AWS account that will be provisioned, you can just click browse, and you go to any of the data set that you're interested in. For example, let's just say the John Hopkins, and you just click on the S3 bucket, right? Yeah, this is another way to just access the data automatically in the account. And those accounts that will be provisioned by AWS, and you will have access to this data. And then you can just use it and load this into your Sagemaker Studio environment. So you can do this without writing a single line of code. So thanks to everyone. I know this is all the time we have. If there's additional questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Bye-bye. Bye.